see if my brothers come on. See if my brothers come on. While I'm waiting for my brothers to come on, I just wanted to take a moment to say Happy Mother's Day to all who are celebrating and those who have mothers that have gone on in transition. We still want to honor infinite love on this day as we're remembering the mothers, grandmothers, aunties that have come along the way and shown much love. I'm just coming on here right now being grateful and thankful to still have my mom, Teresa, who's here with me now. Just wanted to take a moment, my brothers who are far and wide, to be able to participate in what we are introducing into our family as a tradition for Mother's Day. Counting all the times and years that we get to continue to spend and have with our mother. So tonight, listen, as it says, I asked and she said yes. My mom don't like being on camera like that, so this is a rare treat for most. I will say this as a recording for my family. And I encourage you all to take these opportunities that you have in life to love, appreciate, and adore your mom if she's still in your life, as a woman who's been a mother figure to you. So we're going to ask my mom these 7 questions while we still have her here with us. And I'm going to have my brothers come on if they make it on. When y'all come on, Michael, Teron, Dwayne, if y'all come on and you want to join the live, just send me a request. I can let y'all in and y'all can do y'all part from there. But we're going to start with the first question. These are the 7 questions you want to ask your mom while you still have her with you. So, you ready, Mom?
Sure.
All right. The first question is, what's one dream you still carry in your heart?
I think getting my doctor's degree.
Your doctor's degree?
Yeah.
And what study?
It's in psychology.
In psychology?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How long did you have that dream?
Probably since 2011.
What was happening in 2011?
Life.
Life?
Life be life.
Okay. And that you decided that you wanted to get into psychology. So that means you already have a couple degrees.
I have a bachelor's degree in behavioral health. I decided to get into the field because at that time there was definitely a need. And it was something that resonated to me. And that was why I decided to go to college.
Okay. Hey, Miss Jerry. All right, second question. What's something that you wish you had known when you became a mother? When did you become a mother?
I became a mother when I was 15. And I think the one thing I would have wanted to know was just the emotional and the physical aspect of being a mom. It's a lot, and I think a lot of people take it for granted what it all entails. You're just not thinking for yourself. You're thinking and caring for someone who is yet to understand navigating life. You do that for a child.
So that was 15 in 1979.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the support system that you got? What did grandma say? Like, what did she say when you became a mom? Or what did she do or something? She like advice and stuff?
The advice I can definitely say came from my mom, but also my mom's best friend, which was Miss Peggy. A lot of people who watched me and knew me growing up, even my parents, watched me when I brought my son home, Dwayne, for the first time. And I remember my dad saying to me, like, I really didn't think that you were going to be ready at such a young age, and all the responsibility for the baby was going to be your mom's responsibility. And he was just like, I'm like really proud that I see that you were able to do this without support, and you weren't like expecting anybody to do this for you. Like I think the one thing they didn't realize that I actually wanted my son. My son was definitely not an accident, and like I said, I was grateful that they were there to support, but I realized that this was my responsibility.
Awesome. What is a memory from your childhood that shaped who you are?
I want to say people. I spent a good part of my younger days watching people, and I would say it definitely came in handy when I got into the field of behaviors, because there were things that I was learning along the way and watching people, being able to read between the lines, being able to understand complicated conversations, and watching people, not saying what they wanted to say, but saying what they think people wanted to hear. Um, and that really shaped my life to this day, and how I deal with people.
I love it. All right. So what's the hardest thing you ever had to forgive?
God, my sister. Oh, my sister was messy. um, and I say messy, and once again, it was about, these conversations that people don't have. My sister was terminally, she was dying. I knew that there was unresolved conversations, and there was a situation that happened toward the end of her life, got really messy, and she was basically like, I'm done with you, and I'm like, okay, I'm done with you too. um but I knew that we had made this like emotional pact back in the 80s when she was diagnosed with one of her ailments, and I struggled. I struggled with not so much. When people say forgiveness is not about that person, that forgiveness is for you. And I really had to reach down deep, to my spirituality, and ask for that forgiveness, so I could move forward. And it was the best thing that I can definitely say that I did for myself. And I have no regrets on having that conversation. It wasn't about her validating how I felt. It was about me being able to voice how I felt, and that was good for me.
Is that the greatest thing?
Oh, that was the biggest thing. Um, I don't like open-ended situations, and I don't like walking on eggshells, and I don't like we haven't talked in 20 years, and pop, you show up and we talking like we was just talking yesterday. I don't like those type of situations. So it's best for me that I clear that air for myself.
Okay. What is your proudest moment as a woman beyond motherhood?
I think saying I do to my husband. I met him at a young age. I got married when I was 17. And these were all decisions that I was making for myself. Um, and to say that we're 40 years plus still being married, not going to say everything was perfect, because we had some rocky times. Lord knows we had some rocky times. But we always had this ideal, was that even when everything is going wrong, our friendship was what we've always held on to. And we're still friends to this day.
So that's interesting. I was just thinking too, like you had us young,
Mm-hmm.
15. You was a mom.
Mm-hmm.
2 years after you had them when you became
A
a
wife.
wife.
Mm-hmm.
You've been a wife for 40, going on 44 years.
Mm-hmm.
Married, but
Mm-hmm.
together.
Since I was 15, I had turned 15. No,
Before you
no,
been
no,
there,
no,
before
no,
that.
no, no. I met your dad when I was 11.
Right.
So I had just turned 11 and he had just turned 15. So we've been together that long.
Right. So then you, in the past, what, for 45, 44, 46 years out of that, you've been a mom. So from 15, or being a child, like right out of puberty, you've been mom and wife. So as far as your proudest moment, like your proudest moment was getting married, but then you had your kids. So in the time that you had the kids, y'all raised the kids and the kids is grown, how's your relationship changed? Like, or has it changed with my dad? Like now that y'all have done all of that, raised kids, you got grandkids, and now like finding yourselves where it's just y'all two now. What does that look like now? Like, is it kind of like what it was when y'all first got together?
No. No. I think what's kind of changed now in the space where we're definitely in our early 60s, and we're still able to have personal dreams, and we're still able to have our dreams as it comes to our marriage. So right now we're in the process of moving, and looking forward to what that new chapter is going to present for us.
Okay. So I'll have 2 more questions.
Sure.
This one is, what do you want future generations of our family to know about you?
In 2014, I had a conversation with my parents regarding like family reunions. In 2014, I started that whole process of finding out who we were and where did we come from and how did we get here. So from 2014 until now, just that journey in itself, learning about my grandparents and my great grandparents and my great great grandparents, and being able to put that whole presentation together. And by the end of this year, being able to share that with my family it's key. I mean, I just say if you don't, you can't go forward until you go back. You don't know where you've been until you go start taking that journey. And I'm grateful that I've been able to take that journey to be able to share that information with my family. I think it will be an eye opener for some. I'll be introducing some family members to family members that they've never seen or knew about or have known about. And I think that's key. We'll always have that oral history that is African American that's always been a part of us. I now can incorporate that back into my family.
Miss Sherry said empty nesters now. Miss Sherry, I'm always gonna be around Miss Sherry. As long as I stay here, I'm gonna be there. But nonetheless, all right. So last question. If you could leave me with one piece of advice for life, what would it be?
Don't settle.
Okay, period.
Don't settle.
In what way though?
It's easy for, I put it like this. Okay, I'll make it as a personal.
Listen, it's my page. You can get personal.
Okay, so when you have, for me, I always had a connection with my children before I even got pregnant. I prayed for all of my kids. So I'm grateful. And even though I wanted all boys, my husband had stopped me at one point and was like, "Can I just have one girl?" I was like, "Okay, sure, no problem." And once my children, I can say like with Portia, Portia was like, she never moved. She didn't kick. She didn't do none of that. I mean, and at one point I got really scared. And I remember going to one of my prenatal appointments, and the doctor assured me, no, she's got a strong heartbeat. She's good. Yada, yada, yada. I was like, no, but she's not moving. And I had morning sickness for 7 months, and it was brutal. But how I used to get her to move, I used to take ice packs and put on my stomach. She stretched out, she get right back in her ball on my hip, which I still have issues with that hip to this day. But the one thing I used to do was I used to take headphones and put them on my stomach and play all types of music for her, every genre. I played for her, and that's what got her moving the most, music. So the one thing in regards to Portia has always put everybody else first. And I think she's at a part in her life right now where I would like to see her. And sometimes, we have to take a step back and remind ourselves like what our dreams were. And when I see Portia, passionate about the things that she's interested in, sometimes it's going to take you away from your family. And sometimes family's not going to understand what that dream or what that passion is. Then you have to find your group of people who are passionate, just as passionate as you are, but you guys have similar interests, and to be able to create her village around herself. So when I say I don't want to see her settling, I'm like, whatever decision that you have to make, you go in prayer and you make that decision and you go forward. Because what I don't want to, what I wouldn't want to see her do would be to think about what I could have and should have done.
Ooh, yeah.
And I don't want that for her. And I don't want to single out just Portia because, like I said, I have 3 other kids. So when I look at, Dwayne, oh my God, Dwayne is definitely the warrior in all of this. Okay, I would say he is my Shaka Zulu. He is my king of Africa. And it's almost like if you know anything about Harry Potter and Gandalf is on the bridge and he strikes that pole down that ain't nothing coming across it, that's Dwayne. So if I was going to be in a fight, I want him on my team, okay? Because he going to be like, I'm your ride or die. I got you, man. I got you. And I remember when I was in college and we were going over some type of theory. And I remember talking to my professor at the end of class. And I said, I need to share something with you personal. I said, my first child took on all of my energy. And my professor, like, what you mean? I said, it was like, it was my son who saved my life at that point in time. And I've always been grateful to him for being able to do that for me. And anybody that's a psychology major definitely can understand what that's all about. And it's doing that transfer of energy even with your child before they get here. So he was that thing for me. I talk about like Tehran. Oh my God. Anybody who knows Tehran, gifted, gifted. And my tears are not of sadness. And Tehran talks more about me not being here when his time comes and he gets it. And I share with him that it's not about me being here or not. I'm just want you to get it. But it might not be in my time, and that's okay. And some people don't understand our relationship because I'm gonna be there for my son. I'm his cheerleader. I'm his ride or die. I don't care what anybody else thinks or says. But as a mother, I'm gonna be there for my son. I'm not gonna enable him because I am not about enabling, definitely not a Black man. That is not what I do. But I hold my son accountable, and he will definitely tell you. Now, my mom shows sugar got nothing. If I ain't right, if I ain't doing right, she don't tell me that. Because I believe in my son. And I know he gonna do what he gotta do. Michael is our youngest. Definitely a quiet storm. Definitely a quiet storm. I can say that, Michael definitely has a lot of qualities like mine. Sometimes a lot of people don't see it, they don't understand it, but I've been through some things with my son. And I watched my son go through it. scared at some points, it's getting rough. And watching him emotionally kind of like struggle when I left my family for the first time. I watched him struggle because how close our relationship was, and then I wasn't there. Um, Me and him have talked years after that. Once he became an adult, I'm open to my kids sitting down and talking to me about how they feel about some of the decisions that I made, and I have to understand, they suffered or felt some kind of way about that, and it was important for me to be able to sit down and listen to how they felt, you know, and once again, being encouraged and, in regards to being young and being in a relationship, being in a marriage, you don't have all the answers to all of that. Right. And a lot of times, the kids don't understand, and they can take that internally and turn it into something else. So I've always said, my kids, want to sit down and talk to me about myself. It's not about, oh my God, I want to hear it. Oh my God, they're going to put me on a guilt trip. No, that's not how I look at it. I look at it as that if they come to me about a certain situation, it's because they're ready to talk, and I need to be ready to share that information with them. So I take it that it's an opportunity for all of us. I mean, so I definitely hold my motherhood um, sacred. My children know that, we've always opened up our home to family, friends, and strangers. So I've been a mother to a lot of people, but the primary people were the people who I prayed for, and that was my kids, to be here for them, you know. And like I said, I'm grateful for them. I'm grateful for the experiences that I've had and experience that I will continue to have going forward. Yes. Yep, yep, yep. Commissary they say black mothers raise their daughters and coddle their sons no matter how old they get. No, I don't. I mean, I tell people the one thing I'm learning, and I'm glad that I have expanded my understanding about African American people. And because there's been so many narratives created for us, that to say that comment, and I don't take it negative about, women coddling their sons. As African Americans, we coddled all of our children in our family group, um, and our descendants. I mean, I tell people, I'm encouraging people now, as what Portia's doing now, we have to make our families priorities. We have to create traditions within our group, because there are no traditions that we can really fall back on, because our history of who we were and where we come from has been so convoluted. Um, and if you don't start taking that journey back, and that's why, I've been working with the African Ancestry.com. I've done some work with I will call it the Ancestry.com. It's totally a difference. The African Ancestry.com focus solely on the matriarch of your family, and it pinpoints where you're from. So right now, I'm excited about getting that information, because that's a whole talking point that's going to happen for our family in 2025. Um, and I know, and I can use my grandfather, who was Giles Harris, from out of Hayti, Lafayette Street. I can see the remnants of how he raised his family, his children, from Farmville, Virginia, and his parents, and how his parents raised his siblings. Um, they loved their children. They loved their family. They did everything um, that they could for their family with. And I'm going to say my grandparents, 3 generations, none of them could read or write. But what I can see from what they left behind, they were some awesome men and women. And I'm proud to be their granddaughter, great granddaughter, great great granddaughter, totally proud. Um, because once again, that's a part of who I am. That's a part of, when it comes to motherhood, I hear the stories my mother talked about her mother, and I see just how it resonates for her. You know, my grandmother died in 64. I was born in 63. And my grandmother was already in diabetic coma, so she never even got to meet me. But she was integral in all of her grandchildren's lives, and that was important. That was important. So I thank Portia for this opportunity to get me to answer some questions. And like she said, you know, come up with some questions for your family, you know, or have your children, you know, come up with some questions for you and start that conversation. You know, just don't let life be happening and you wake up one day and you want to have a conversation with somebody and they're not there. And nobody can tell you what somebody else felt. Give them an opportunity to talk about where they're at right now. Like I said, me and Wayne are both in our 60s, and we should be reflecting with our kids right now, either with them individually or them as a group. But you want to take out time to reflect. It's important.
But how was that though, Mom? Because I want to get back to that, y'all. I mean, having as a mom, like this is just as a mom now, as a woman, you know, teenager, you know, having kids. I know the time was different in the 70s, late 70s and 80s. I'm even reflecting and doing a comparison now. You know what I mean? I'm on the cusp of 44, but and had my kids a year. We had Dwayne at 15. I had John at 16. Mm-hmm. Teenage years is different.
So for me, I wanted kids. I wanted kids. You know, people who know me as a kid, I was babysitting kids when I was 9 years old, literally. The first kid I did was about 6 days old. Snuck the baby in the house. My parents didn't even know the baby was in the house until the morning time when the mom came to get the baby. But I always wanted kids. So as soon as I could have taken classes from Planned Parenthood, keep in mind, I looked older, my conversation was older. They thought that I was a single woman coming there to get resources by getting pregnant. So they gave me everything that I needed.
So what was the conversations that you had with your parents in regards to what their expectations were like when you were teenagers? Like how did they talk to you about family planning that young?
No, not at all. That wasn't even a conversation, wasn't a topic. When I got pregnant, my dad was like, "Your mom didn't have that conversation with you," and I was like, you know, me. I'm not gonna say I was on the defensive, but I was on that tip was like, well, you can't be putting a responsibility on her because you're my dad, you're my parent. So either y'all already had this conversation about when you were gonna have this conversation with your kids, and if you were gonna take care of the boys and she was gonna take care of the girls. I said, but guess what? Nobody did it. So I went out on my own and found out things on my own. But I can only say once again, a lot of people just didn't talk about that kind of stuff. And I can't say it was a black thing, a white thing, Hispanic. People just wasn't talking about that kind of stuff. And my dad was like, well, you know, did they talk about that in school? And I was like, oh no, we're not even going down that road. You know, they was trying to teach you about pads and tampons and coming on your periods and no education, not from a school standpoint. And I wouldn't have expected that. But like I said, in the in the end, we have a tendency to repeat the same thing. Because I mean, I can say like in your case, you know, I remember knowing at some point, you know, you were getting ready to start, you know, ministering, and I set you and your brothers down because I'm like, you know, if I'm not here, you know, this is where I put all her products at. If she needs something, you know, is anybody gonna have a problem going to the store? And Dwayne was like, no, I don't have no problem. As long as I got the money, I go buy whatever she need and bring it back home. I mean, so I want to say that the boys were definitely supportive, but no, I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have my kids young, and I did just that. I started at 15, and the last one I had, I was about Michael. No, I was 21 when I had Michael. And I wanted my kids. I wanted them young, and I wanted them close so we could grow up together.
So when did you learn that when the kids got here, when Dwayne got here, Did you learn about like breastfeeding and all that stuff?
Oh, I was on top of everything. Dwayne had the lactate stuff going on. So he really struggled just with milk, period, and didn't do what they said. He didn't latch like he should have.
So couldn't nurse?
No, I couldn't nurse. I couldn't nurse Dwayne. I was in school with Dwayne. I was in school with you. I tried to do it with Tehran, but Tehran had some complications in the beginning of his birth. So even though I pumped and took the milk over there, he wasn't having that either. So the only one that actually took to it was Michael. So I breastfed Michael. Michael was even walking. Yeah. Until one day I looked at him. I said, Michael, if you bite me, that's gonna be it. And he bit me. That was it. But yeah, Michael went straight from the breast to the table. Yeah. But like I said, I wanted my children young, so I invested the time in learning how to take care of my kids. You know, I was at the time Cash had what they call pregnant school, and they had it at the Y downtown in Cokesville. So I went to school there.
And what did they do?
So there, I mean, we had teachers come in, but I guess the idea was you could bring your child to school with you. And that was definitely helpful because I was having issues finding daycare for Dwayne. You know, even to the point where I remember going to my guidance counselor saying, I've had it. Give me the papers. I'm signing myself out. And I remember my guidance counselor looked at me and she said, Teresa, I have given many people that paperwork. She said, I didn't even think twice about it. You want it? I'm going to give it to you. She said, but I'm not giving it to you. She said, nope. She said, so whatever that we have to do, we're going to make it work, but you're graduating. She said, and after graduation, then you figure out the rest. But right now, we're going to get you through this. And I did. So I was pregnant with Dwayne in 9th grade. I was pregnant with you in 12th grade. And like I said, matter of fact, I was married before I graduated. I got married May 23rd and graduated June 6th. And like I said, at that point, you know, my girlfriends and stuff, they couldn't relate to me, you know, but then they started getting pregnant. But I was good. You know, I had my family. I had my husband, I had my kids, and whoever understood, understood, and whoever didn't. Because I just wasn't, I wasn't a follower, so it didn't make any difference to me.
So let's go through, you got teenage kids. How was that like now seeing us as teenagers and you know you was having children around those ages, but to be able to see us be teenagers and do teenage things, like how did that make you feel still being a mothering us through the teenage years?
The teenage years was different because then you start seeing your children as individuals and they have different interests and different passions. And me and, you know, Wayne always had a schedule where one of us was home. And as soon as we changed our schedule and we were both out working the same, like day shift stuff, I think we put, how can I put it? We looked at you guys as being responsible enough to have a short window for us not to be at the house, and that definitely wasn't the case. Was not the case because I think Dwayne kicked into overdrive. I think maybe you and Dwayne were more, how can I say, wanted to take the leadership, the role when me and your father weren't around. You know, and Tehran was like, I'm out. Okay, he out. You know, and Michael's just like, okay, so what am I supposed to do? And I look at that now and I say that, you know, I'm grateful that I had my kids during the time that I did because this time right about now, we was dealing with stuff back in the 70s, in the 80s. Nothing like this. Nothing like this. Nothing like this. No. Mm-mm.
You know, one of the things I'm grateful for, I said growing up in Carver's Court was that, you know, when Carver's Court, we had, you know, the other mothers in the community. We had the Miss Amanda Mays and the Pam Betts and Sharon Hunt and Miss Gladys, and they all looked out for each other anyway. So even though we were home, you know, we was always still being watched.
No, I'm talking about on
Sixth Avenue.
Ooh, Sixth Avenue was
Sixth Avenue was different.
Yeah, different.
When we left the court, life was just different. Period.
Different.
Like it was, we were exposed to everything. Ooh. Yeah. You know, Carver Court was safety. Yeah. It was community. Like definitely. There was no worries there. I mean, we experienced stuff. You know, kids would experience when we got on Sixth Avenue. It was like middle school. That was middle school years for me before we left and went to private school. That was, yeah, it was out of control.
Definitely.
I'm not saying it was out of control. I mean, you know, live life on the edge.
Well, you know, and then I have to, you know, include my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
Who, you know, I've always loved dearly, you know, cherished him. And just having somebody who was in an active drug addiction. And I would say clearly at coming to the end of life for him. But just knowing how important it was for his brother and my kids really became an anchor for him. I know he didn't want the kids to see him that way, but he had been in his addiction from the time that he was 15 years old, and he died in his mid-40s. And it really took a toll on him. You know, we tried to be there, try to support him. You know, he lived with us, you know, when he didn't have any place to live. Did he respect our boundaries in our home? Absolutely not.
But it made it interesting.
But yeah, more than I wanted it to be interesting, but I just couldn't see my brother-in-law out there like that. I've never judged him. Once again, anything that I could do to help him in any end, I did a whole lot to help him. But that was just who I was, and I'm grateful that he had time to spend with his nieces and nephews and have that closeness, because he had other nieces and nephews, but they weren't really around him like my kids was. And I'm grateful that they had an opportunity to spend time with him and get to understand and see that and what that was all like for them growing up. But, you know, once again, you know, we rallied around and we did the best that we could for him. Definitely.
So before we get off of here, Mom, I wanted to publicly, you know, make this. I'm not even gonna call it a declaration, but I wanted, like I said, I wanted to express my gratitude, and ask the question, are you were still here? Because I think that, you know, even for myself, when I can reflect now, you know, looking at motherhood, is those moments that I've experienced as far as my kids, you know, being a teenage mom and going through life, like, you know, most of it, you know, being a single mom and the different relationships that I've had. And I can kind of see, you know what I mean, as growing up mom and daughter, that relationship, and it was just like where we struggled at, or where we had our crossing the road, or however they said. And a lot of the anger and resentment that I held, you know what I mean? Because it was just like, how dare you? Right? And just living with all of that, not knowing, not even understanding where you were at in your life at the point in time. Because we have our parents, but we don't ever really know our parents. We just know that's my mom, that's my dad, and that's all y'all are. So all y'all supposed to be is what we conceived or what we've expected you're supposed to be and do. So you don't know who your parents are, what dreams they had, what things they like. You don't even know their favorite color. You don't really know nothing about them until you ask them. So when that incident happened, and we've had to weather that. Different things, happen in your life, and it's like you get the opportunity to see it from a different lens. Being a mom, I get to see how you change as a woman, right? Being a young woman having kids and growing into your womanhood amongst raising your kids at the same time. That's a hard task. Trying to find your identity, like who you are, like who were you, like you always wanted to be a mom. I never was against being a mom, but it wasn't something that I thought about. Like when it happened, it happened. I was ready. I took on the role. But if I was to look back now and be like, dang, like I just, I was moving on raw emotion. Like if it was happening on Tuesday, that's what I'm doing. And I think that because I was so, how would you say, not a risk taker. Yeah, I was a risk taker. Still, I'm probably a little bit. But I didn't listen well. I didn't listen well as a teenager. I didn't really wasn't open to taking people's advice on what I should do or where I should go. I always did the opposite just because, right? But nonetheless, I made my decisions and I stuck by it. I had my kids. And I would say to the degree, you and my dad were very supportive, but I still felt like there was things I was missing that I didn't get from you because you were going through your own thing quite naturally. Because when I can see it now for myself, I understand the why. You know what I'm saying? Like I can understand what was happening for you. I'm assuming at the time because I was experiencing it. But even though we didn't talk about it, I could recognize it in me. I'm like, dang, this is probably what my mom was experiencing. This is probably what my mom was feeling at this moment. Because this is what I'm feeling right now. And you can make a choice, right? You can make the choice. And like you said earlier, like you're going to choose whatever decision that you're going to make, you're going to have to live with that. You're going to have to live through it. And I say the same thing with my kids too. There are decisions and things that I've made in my life that they can now come to me and express how they felt. And you gotta eat that. You gotta eat that. And it's not, like you said, it's not to make me feel bad or put a guilt trip on me. This is what I decided to do. These are the circumstances that came out of it. If this is what you're experiencing, and I'm at a different place in my life, I can help you work through that. I can work instead of just holding on to it, because holding on to it is detrimental to your own health. And instead of letting it go. And it's not the easiest thing. So, like even today, being Mother's Day, Mother's Day is 365 days of the year. It definitely transforms into other things in your life. Like motherhood is just not about having kids.
No.
It's not just about having kids. I shared earlier today, like, it is an honor. Not every woman gets the opportunity to become a mother. On naturally, let's just say naturally, and they have that experience.
Some who try to get adoption don't get approved to adopt.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's different methods to become a mother,
but it's not all a guarantee.
Yeah, it's not all guaranteed. Yeah. So those who are, whether chosen, blessed, or signed, however people identify, their path, it comes with a great deal of sacrifice and responsibility that is till death do you part.
Well, like I said, when people always ask, what did you want to be growing up? And I said, a mom. And they were like, what? Who says that? And I tell them, I had my mother, my aunt Vi, my aunt Betty, and Miss Peggy Hines. I'm saying, them women showed just how they showed motherhood. They took, because they all started out being, homemakers, and they took that and turned that into, I would say, it wasn't a chore. It was just that they did something that you rarely get to see today.
Yeah.
That they really took that whole responsibility and turned it into a labor of love. And that's what I wanted. And I when I got married, I remember telling my husband, like, you know what, I want to be a housewife with benefits. So if I want to go to college or do stuff like that, but I just want to be home. I want to be home, and do what I need to do, being involved in whatever your kids were doing at that time in school or things y'all wanted to do. We did a lot with you kids growing up, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I was solely outside of my home. So, and like I said, today in the 20th century, I can look back and just say I'm so grateful. I'm definitely grateful. Um, Somebody would say, would you do something over again? My father, that was one of the questions he asked me before he transitioned, would you do it again? And I told him yes. I said, I'd make some little variations. I said, but I still would have wanted to get married young. I still would want to have had my kids young. But the other stuff that would have prepared me as I'm getting older and they're getting older, that I would have had to incorporate all of that. Meaning, hint, hint, you need a plan, for real, for real. Can't do it without a plan. Um, so, like I said, I'm grateful. I love my kids. I may not say it enough. I may not hug them enough as adults, but I may do it more with their kids and not with them. But no, so like I said, there's a lot of things going forward that we definitely have to change and do different going forward, and I'm up for it. I'm up for it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, just sit right there because we didn't get off of here, but a lot of people already know how this goes. I just got a couple of them here.
Of course, you got a bag of bees,
I got
y'all.
my bag of
You got a
bees.
bag of
That's
bees.
in my bag. Let me take out the birthday one because it's not your birthday. But are my kids here? Tristan, did they have these? I think she had to go down the street or something.
But you did it.
Yeah, I'm going to. But that's fine. They don't. This can be a personal one. I'm just gonna give you a couple. You know what the B stands for. Let me see if I'm on. If I have to check if I'm on camera. Are you on camera? Oh, you're still on camera. Yeah. All right. So for those who don't know, pretty much know what these are. I carry these all the time. So professionally, I am a certified sacred ceremony facilitator, and what I love to do is this is a ceremony that I created traditionally in my home for my family. That I've also incorporated into our business to honor our moms, our bereaved moms, honor our bereaved fathers. But right now, I'm going to do this for my mom to honor and appreciate and adore her while she's still here. We learned some things today. My mom shared some things today about her journey of motherhood. We collectively shared our journey of motherhood, and this is recorded for my family to have in a whole. So if you've joined, if you've stopped by, we appreciate it. If you have shared a comment, thank you very much. If you just all here lurking because you was like, who she say yes to? Yes, I just asked my mother to do this, and she said yes. So I thank you very much. This is very important to do. Like my mom said, if you have an opportunity to have your loved one, doesn't just have to be your mom, it could be your children. This is also self-care beads. Adorn yourself with the love, adoration, and appreciation that you need. But right now I'm gonna bead my mom. I'm gonna honor her for her courage, for her strength, for her wisdom, for her life, for her sacrifice, for all the things that she gave to be my mom. Whether it was her desire, her dream to be a mother. Again, this road is chosen. You are chosen to be a guide. I'm grateful that this was a path that I chose for myself as a spirit baby before I got here. She talked about, and you give them their flowers while they're still here, because everybody doesn't have to say yes to the task. Everybody doesn't have to accept this assignment to be a guide, um, to be a guide on this earth side. So Teresa D. Graham Grove, as your daughter, I thank you for your sacrifice. Um, I thank you for your strength. Like India Ivory says, strength, courage, and wisdom. They all go together. Even as we continue to learn on this journey, as mother, daughter, as friend, as business partner, as associates, and all those great things. But I am honored to call you my mom and to have been under your guidance and tutelage. And taking those things, but taking, like I say, take the meat and leave the potatoes. You understand what I'm saying? So I hope that this time next year we get to do it again. Lord's willing, or just make time. Make time and don't have to wait a whole year just because.
Right.
So,
No special event.
No special event. Absolutely. Miss Jerry, you still up in this job, Miss Jerry? I love you, Miss Jerry. Miss Jerry, thank you for being one of the mothers, too, in the neighborhood. People that didn't get an opportunity to grow up in Carver's Court will never understand the bond that we all share. And I thank you for being my neighbor mom and still mothering. And that's the one thing about the women, women too. Like, we grow up and there's many mothers that come into our lives, that help us, that give us another piece to incorporate in our life. And I think for a long time it was like, I think for me and you, it was like, oh, my mom's not doing this. I'm going to go over here and this is going to be my mom because this woman, but it was not to a point of like taking something from you. It was like, this is what my mom could give and this is what my mom couldn't give. But instead of saying you could give this to me, I'm going over here. It was like, I'm thankful for the other women God placed in my life to give the part. You know what I mean? That made it whole. So it's like, I love that. So it's Miss Jerry is definitely one of our neighborhood moms. Teron, you want to get on? You want to come on and tell mom something you love, appreciate, and adore about her before I get off of here? I can bring you on. Let me see if I can invite you on here. If you can join, you was on here earlier. I don't know what happened. I sent Dwayne a request to see if he wanted to say something. If you want to say something, Tara, you can come on and I'll be mom for you. Since you ain't here. You gotta there you go. I see you. Hold on, I'm gonna bring you on. The person was unable to join. It say you got technical issues. I don't know. Type it in the chat and I'll give her a beat.
He's going to be here for Father's Day, so I'm quite sure you're going to do this again on Father's Day.
That's Father's Day. This is Mother's Day right now. Oh, different. You want to beat your grandma? Thank you very much. How many you want? One?
You only need one.
Do you want one? Here. I'm watching. Yeah, a couple people stop by. Come on, I'm coming in. Just something you love, appreciate, or adore about your grandma. Or you can just say Happy Mother's Day. You can tell what you're grateful for. You don't have to. She right there. She says, I'll be out there later, but this was a good thing that y'all did. I know you'll be out late. Is there anything you'd like to say to mom right now that you can text and I can pick? This is your beat. I can put your beat. Oh, hold on. Tristan's talking. Sorry.
I'll be a little hard-headed sometimes.
No, really?
But you be trying to give me the best advice. Well, I ain't gonna say you be trying. You give me the best advice. Well, I'm gonna say you've been through it all. Well, not it all, but most of it. Since you've been doing this since you was a young boy, you feel me? But I appreciate it. Feel me? Because, like I said, I'm hard-headed. I don't like to follow directions.
Where you get that from?
At the same time, I appreciate you for it. Because it might not seem like I'll be listening.
Oh, I know you're listening.
But yeah, I'll be listening. It just takes me a little minute to
True Aquarian.
Put it to use.
Yes.
But I love you. I appreciate you. And happy Mother's Day.
Thank you, grandson.
Yeah.
Period. All right, brother ain't saying nothing.
Okay.
It's all good. Listen, again, I thank y'all. Well, so, Mom, thanks for saying yes, because you know you don't like doing this stuff, and I appreciate it. But it's the moments and the memories that you don't get to
And
give.
it's just like I said, it's not for me. You can go back and look at this and look at this. So, like I said, the more we do this, and as we're finishing up on and this would be the Harris and the Irving family tree history. It's this kind of things that are incorporated in that whole process.
Okay. So my brother he says, he said, what can I ask? He said, I just want to thank her for letting me be able to explore my life on my own terms. That's a B. And he said, good or bad, because this was my journey. So boom. Yeah, Tara, I don't know if you see what Mom said earlier, but you might want to watch it on replay when I post it. But she definitely, you know, gave a commentary on all of us. And she definitely talked about you. So you want to go back and watch that. But yeah, we getting out of here. I'm about to eat some cookies. I don't tell nobody, but I'm treating myself today.
All right.
And I love y'all. I love y'all for stopping by and just sharing this moment, this intimate moment with me and my mom and my siblings who stopped by. It means a lot. So again, love on the ones you got. Don't take it for granted. Oh, you watched the whole thing, brother? Okay. Yeah. And you know, if you got them today, listen, love on them today. Tell them. And even if you can't tell them, listen, write it in a note, leave it, something. It's gonna be good for you. We are, like I said, this is something that we've incorporated into our family because it's important to just for people to know who you are. People know you are, what you've been through. Some things you can relate to. You think you're going through it by yourself, but you're not. We reliving our ancestors' lives, and we see a little bit of ourselves in each other. So things to celebrate. You know, choose to celebrate. Choose to operate on the love vibration. You know, there's a lot of negative things going around, but it's your choice. Forgive what you can for yourself, not for somebody else. Because carrying it around is really nasty if you can. But I pray, my prayer is for all of you to, you know, if you're struggling, if you're having an issue with your parent, with your mom, like, listen, dig in you. You don't know. You don't know what it took for her to be here, what it continues to take for her to just walk about every day. But you have life. You have life because of her, nonetheless. Um, Miss Jerry, God bless you and your family too. Truly love you. Truly love you. The love is real. Listen, I want y'all to have a great rest of y'all Mother's Day evening and on it for purpose. Good night. Ashe. Amen. Amen.